Hello, welcome back to another episode of Yarns for the Soul. I'm your host Nicole and it's so good to have you here. If you've been enjoying the content, would love if you can jump in and rate and review my episodes, my podcast on whatever platform you're listening to, or just get in touch as well. It's nice to know that people are listening and possibly I'm not just talking to myself and sending words out into the dark abyss of cyberspace, but also kind of happy with that too. So bringing you another episode today with a special guest, Jennifer Young. So we connected last year 2022 in Central Otago and realised we're at fairly similar points in our journeys, being we kind of just needed a bit of a break, nearing a point of burnout and needed to slow down and really relax and do some healing. So it was amazing getting to meet her. She is the founder and lead coach at Intentional Generations. So after studying law, got out the other side and one of the many that realised that this was not what she wanted to do with her life. And so she took some pretty courageous steps along the way, which you'll hear more of in our yarns. I will put all of her contact details in the show notes so you can go and find her website, find her over on Instagram and Facebook. She also shares a number of really cool resources during our chat, so I will put links to all of those in the show notes as well, so you can go and find them and check those out. So again, thank you so much for being here, and let's jump in. Hello everyone, welcome back. Today I have another special guest, Jennifer Young. She is the founder, creator of Intentional Generations. She also told me she wants to be defined as a wannabe dog mum and Latin dance expert.
Oh, not an expert, but like huge fan. Huge fan. Yeah,
Okay.
love her. Absolutely love her.
Thank you so much for joining me.
Oh, thanks so much for having me. So excited for this. We've been talking about this for ages.
I know. Mm-hmm. So where do we start?
Where do we start?
So much.
Well, you wanted to know first, like, what is Intentional Generations and like what is it they actually do?
Or do we start with more about you?
Oh,
what makes you cool and awesome?
Love that. Okay, well, let's start with like the personal side of things. Yeah, I love that.
Who is Jen? Bit of background,
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So, hey everyone, excited to be on the podcast always. So, long story short, rural country upbringing, good old mum, dad together, family of three. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, my older brother was very unwell for all of his life, so the first 10 years, and ended up passing away from cancer when I was 8 and he was 10. And his memory, Alex, is something that I hold in my heart every single day. And honestly, it's part of why I have chosen the path that I've done to not just, be in a work environment or be in a job, but to actually intentionally do something with my life and to support others, because I know that if we have the privilege of being highly educated or being able to physically move and being physically able, is using that privilege for those that don't have that. So his memory is something that really guides me every single day, being completely honest. Yeah.
Hitting us with the feels.
Oh, straight in. I think, not one for superficial conversation. I think that's what your podcast is about, and I love that. So that's a really big thing that's guided me. So country, upbringing, close family unit, big loss early on, went to high school in the city, university in Otago, got basically all the drinking out of my system. Classic. Loved that. Did law and arts, all that good stuff. And when I was finishing up my profs course, which both you and I know quite a lot about.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. Both went down that legal path. I had 3 weeks worth of my prof course left to do, and an email came into my inbox and said, hey, do you want a full scholarship to Outward Bound? And I said, yes, absolutely. Wow. Yeah. So $500 deposit on my behalf and, transport. But that time in Outward Bound, those 3 weeks away, in nature, away from everything. I'd started meditating maybe a month or two before Outward Bound, and I was really getting into yoga at that point in time. That time away made me realize, oh, I don't actually want to be a lawyer.
So was this before you'd finished profs?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This was I had 3
Great
weeks
timing.
left. Yeah. Terrible timing. Gone through 5.5 years of study.
Yeah.
How much is profs? Oh my goodness.
know.
Don't even want to think about it.
Yeah.
And 3 weeks left, and I had that experience and realized, wow, that time
this
away
isn't- yeah.
and experiencing the coaching and the leadership development of being on Outward Bound made me really realize, wow, I don't want to be a lawyer. I'd been getting experience in community law and a bit of employment law while I'd been at university, and doing bits and pieces while I was finishing off profs, and realized, no, this isn't the path for me.
Was there
Good timing.
anything particular about the Outward Bound experience that kind of clicked for you that made you realise you're heading in the wrong direction?
Yeah,
Like
it
a
was.
moment?
Well, it was realizing that I'd actually had quite a bit of pressure from my family to follow a more stable, certain path.
Yeah.
Because
Classic,
of
yeah.
because of my upbringing and losing my older brother early on in life, and I totally understand this, they saw the value in security and certainty and following that kind of path, and having the certainty about a certain amount of income coming in, whereas I'd been talking for many years that I wanted to go straight into either teachers college or counselling or psychology. No, for real.
wow, yeah.
So it's really funny now that I'm basically doing that, but in a very different setting.
And so you did an arts degree as well.
Yes.
What was your arts degree in?
So initially it was psychology, until I realised I don't like experiments and needles and science.
Yeah, science is hard.
Yeah, science is hard. Then music, because I thought, oh, if law doesn't work out, I could always be a music teacher. I've played music and performed my entire life. And then I switched into art history and history by the very end, because I've always loved, history, exploring things, understanding what makes people tick, why people do things, and historical moments and behavioural patterns. And
I love that, because I did a history degree as well, and I remember thinking about what I was going to study, and people were like, do what you're interested in, what you're good at. I was like, oh, do a history degree.
yeah.
And then someone was like, what are you going to do as a history degree?
Yeah.
You should do something more practical. How about law? Very similar.
Yeah, I got that as well. Yeah. I was like, well, I really like art history, and I love learning about people, and I love psychology. I don't like the experiment side of things and the science side of things, but I love understanding what makes people tick and understanding the deeper nature of things, and our behaviour, our psychology, the why behind the way that we are, and our behaviour and our personality and our character. I absolutely love that. And so have done a lot of that kind of study since leaving law.
Yes.
I mean, since leaving law and going into the workplace, that first year and a half out of university, I realised, oh wow, university or just education in general does not prepare you for real life in the slightest. And being in a working environment where my first job, I was in a working environment in the public sector, and there were only 2 of us in there that were younger than 35. So we were, I think we were 22 and 24 at that point in time. And the next youngest one was 35 plus. So it was like 35 to 70. And the huge change from new city, new job, new career path, brand new relationship at that point in time, a really unhealthy living environment, huge changes in life, being in a working environment with people that did not understand younger people, that had no time to mentor or coach. There was no kind of, there was no graduate program. There was people that go into work organisations, graduate programs. I look at them and think, you are so lucky to have that cohort, that supportive nature. Whereas going straight into a working environment like that, I went in so confident, pretty self-aware, I would think, but, probably also quite naive at that point in time, and someone that is highly sensitive and an empath. And within 9 months, my mental health completely crumbled to the point that I developed high-functioning anxiety and depression for the first time in my life. I ended up to the point of suicidal ideation, ended up in hospital really scared, and realised... And I think it was an internal vow at that point in time that I never wanted people, but especially younger people in their first 5 to 10 years of their career, to ever experience what I did without understanding their mental emotional well-being, without understanding different generational differences, without understanding how to, really operate and work in those kinds of environments. And I think it was actually a seed that was planted, as these things do. Like, now that I can look back and see those breadcrumbs being planted along the way, that it was a big experience where I realized I can see exactly where it is that I want to be, where it's coaching, facilitating, speaking, making a positive impact in workplaces and youth environments and different cultures and groups because of actually going through the pain. So it's almost like, what do they call it? Post-traumatic growth, I think they call it.
I like that.
Yeah, so post-traumatic growth. Horrible at the time. And I can also look back on it and be so very grateful for going through it, because it built my resilience, it built my resolve there. I didn't want other environments to be like that. And within, I'd say, 3 to 5 years of that, I had gone out on my own, initially as Genway Insights, because it was just a blog when I first started. It was blogging about my journey with facing fear, and I called it 40 Days of Facing Fear, where every day for 40 days I did something that I'd either never done before, it was outside my comfort zone, or it scared me so shitless, like to the point of like, you know, facing a trauma or facing a phobia. I'm not even kidding. That was literally those 40 days, blogging about it, posting on Facebook, and I've still got the blog on Intentional Generations now, because that was the beginning.
Were you still in the same role, like working in that same job when the blog started?
No, so
did you quit? Did you walk away?
So okay, don't know whether this is like luck or universe or whatever. You know, it depends on your beliefs. But that first working environment I was in for, I think, a year and a quarter, and a year and a quarter. There was this big sign. I had just attended the Rotary Youth Leadership Awards program. It's like this 5-day youth like leadership development program. Amazing for anyone that's listening. Highly recommend looking into it. RYLA, or Rotary Youth Leadership, amazing program for 18 to 25, 18 to 30 year olds. I came back the first day that I got back from RYLA. I found out the organisation was restructuring, and my position and a few others were made redundant.
Wow.
Yeah. So I had this big freak out of like, oh my gosh, my first role out of university is being restructured, made redundant. And I still remember my new manager at the time, she said something that I still hold on to it, that you can choose, you have a choice. You can either choose to stay and be the victim and be like, oh no, everything's changed, I'm going to go into this position that I really it's not suited, or I can choose to be empowered and choose redundancy, and then take the leap of faith, you know, go out on my own, figure out what those next steps might be. And it was maybe a month or two of job searching, doing temp work, starting to contract. So I started contracting, I started temping, and I think it was a natural progression from full-time employment into temping, then contracting some more in the private sector, doing instructional design and learning and development. And then I went traveling for a few months and ended up coming back and thinking, I'm out on my own, I'm going to do this. Yeah. I mean, with the being out on my own, it's now been 5 years of it. Firstly, Genway Insights, and now Intentional Generations. And when I went out on my own, there were periods of time where I'd pick up different bits of contracting work, or I'd do part-time facilitation or something for different organisations. So it's been a huge, huge 5 years.
That's just, I'm so struck by the fact as well that, like, as shit as the situation, like the organisation you worked for, the fact that there was someone in that organisation that actually said that to you. Yeah. At that point in time that you had someone in your life that was kind of like, you could use this redundancy money and take a leap of faith, like invest in you. Yes, and I did. And kind of low-key, like, get out. Yeah, low-key, yeah. A little bit.
Actually, the redundancy money, I'm so grateful for it, because I used it to fund the coaching qualification that I now use 6, 7, 8 years after the fact. So I did the Neuro Leadership Institute's brain-based coaching certificate. It was like a year-long certificate, taught me all the groundwork of coaching. And then a year later I did yin yoga teach training. I went to Fiji and was trained in meditation and sustainability and peace studies, but in conflict resolution by Thai Buddhist monks. They came over and trained a whole bunch of us. That's amazing. The last few years has just been a whole lot of different experiences and self-study and also formal study, whether it's been in mental health or mental health first aid. It's been understanding like somatic stress release, so how to release stress from the body, the movement. I've done a lot of dancing as well, so seen the benefits of that.
Were you always into dance, or was this a post kind of
Oh, funny story.
Okay.
So I did actually do a few years of dance when I was, itty bitty Jen, little Jen.
Yes.
And I still remember there's this really funny photo that my mum has of me at Christmas time. And it's my favourite photo where I'm wearing this pink sparkly top. It's got a pink... No, it's a pink top and it's got a gold star on it, and then I'm wearing this pink tutu.
Of course.
Yeah,
of
course. And I'm so happy, and I'm just spinning around, and I did like a few years of ballet and then jazz ballet when I was younger, as so many of us do. And then I didn't dance until I think it was maybe 2018, 2019, excuse me, until I'd had a breakup, and then I was like, oh well, I've had this big breakup, and I have all this free time now.
Yes.
I have so much free time because I'm not spending so much time with this human. And so I saw on Facebook free taster class for salsa, bachata and zouk in Wellington, and I was like, oh, I've wanted to learn salsa for years.
Yeah.
And I went along, and I was so nervous. The first time because I was going by myself.
And not knowing anyone.
Yes. But then immediately outside the entry to the dance studio, I ended up having a good chat with people that were going in. I was like, okay, maybe I can do this. Maybe I can.
Yes.
And the first class happened, and I fell in love, and I've not looked back. It's been probably a solid 3.5 or 4 years since then of doing a lot of dance, apart from COVID. COVID, stopping the dance and life and all the things.
Yeah, I love that you kind of reconnected with dance, and it plays in so well to the training that you've been doing yourself and releasing stuff.
Oh,
through body
100%.
movement, like all of that jazz.
Yeah, I honestly, I think whenever it comes with like stress or it comes with emotions, my first port of call, and it's whether it's for myself or it's any advice for clients or it's coaching and consulting, is always start with the body, always start with movement, because so many of us, we went through many years of law school, so we can do the brain stuff, we can do the thinking, we can do the cognition, we can do the analysing, but when it comes with emotions, when it comes with well-being, it is the body. There is very much that inextricable, it is completely connected, the mind, the body, the emotions, etc. And, you and I have both been learning a lot about trauma this year and about how stuff is stored in the body, and so actually moving the body is really important. And then with being self-employed, I'm often very much in my more masculine energy, so I'm making decisions, I'm leading, I'm managing, I'm facilitating, I'm managing a room, I'm facilitating workshops, I'm advising leaders, I'm having to be quite strategic about things and being
planning
really careful.
All of that. Keeping track of all of that.
Yeah, it's a lot. And then dance, I can follow, I can relax, I don't have to think about things, I can surrender, I can just be me. It's like a moving meditation for me most of the time. It's just beautiful. Highly recommend. Do get into it.
I have been thinking about it. I've never been like a natural dancer.
Ooh.
I was not one of the small children that was put in a tutu and sent off to ballet. I think I was just like out exploring the farm.
Fair.
Very masculine. I was like, no tutus. No, definitely not.
No Barbie dolls. No, you just have Christmas llamas.
I do have Christmas llamas and Christmas dolls.
Yeah, so for those that are listening, we're in Nicole's office at the moment, and she's got this toy, she calls it a Christmas llama, but I think it actually looks more like a sheep, so we're calling it a shlama, a sheep llama.
It's a decoration.
Yeah.
It's festive.
Yes.
And it's almost December.
It is. When we're recording
Except it's here permanently.
Makes all the sense, life makes sense at times.
It does. A companion, office buddy.
Yes, yay.
Yeah.
I mean, especially if
emotional
you're working at home.
support office llama.
Love that.
Yeah, whatever helps. You can dance.
Yes, thank you. Well, like dance, dogs, sunshine, all these things. And I think especially when there's been so much happening the last few years, having different strategies or things that really help us is really important. Actually, on that, so when I first started being in coaching, people development and wellbeing and all that sphere, I really struggled with being in that sphere and having that identity as being a coach or a wellbeing person, because so many people would either pedestalize me or think, oh, she has all her stuff together. Oh, she's, perfect. Or they'd put me up like that.
And I guess you kind of have to, I mean, I'm imagining like going into spaces, especially when you're leading workshops and giving talks, you kind of have to like not put on a brave face, but like put your big girl pants on, be like, 100%. I'm leading this, I'm in control of this space.
I know what I'm doing.
Yeah, exactly. So you're going into that space trying to be like, I've got this.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, I guess, understandable that people think that you've got this.
Yeah, no, 100%.
But then I guess, they, as you say, they kind of see you in a particular light without really actually knowing you or your story or your background.
100%. I remember within the first year and a half, I was asked to speak at this conference to, I think, a few hundred people in the magazine publishing profession. It was one of the worst talks I've ever given. They gave me a 10-minute speaking slot to talk about how to have more happy, healthy, connected teams and people. Wow. And I remember being welcomed into the room by the MC, and she was immediately basically saying, oh, I know that you're in Wellbeing, and oh, I'm exercising all the time, and oh no, I'm not going to eat that donut there. And I was like, why are you feeling this need to portray this thing? Yes, it was very weird.
In advance, with no need to be defensive.
Yeah, and I get this all the time. I still do.
Wow.
But honestly, I've gotten to the point over the last few years that I've realised Wellbeing is very much not about appearance. It's very much how you feel. It's how you treat yourself. It's how you treat connections with others. It's very personalized. It's not you must have a six-pack of abs, all that kind of stuff. And I think I was a bit skinnier at that point in time, but also I was recovering from disordered eating for many years, and this feeling that I must control things because life is so much out of my control that I must have some kind of
control,
right?
Because I can't believe she said that, because in my mind, well-being is like complete other end of the spectrum to like, can I eat this donut?
Oh, 100%.
And for me, some days well-being looks like having the donut. It makes me
have
happy.
The bloody donut. It makes me so happy as well. I was actually going to say, like, those strategies for getting through difficult times. I jokingly call it my vitamin D, like my vitamin D list, where it's dancing, dogs, vitamin D, sunshine, donuts. Oh, and deep and meaningful conversations.
Yes.
Yeah,
I love that.
You're welcome. You can
Thank
have that.
you.
Actually, I want to trademark that because I really like my vitamin D list.
Yes. That's beautiful.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I'm still processing that one.
Yeah. Well, you want to need our strategies. Maybe you have like your shawarma bar of my vitamin D list. My Wellbeing.
Vitamin D list. Yeah. So did this kind of happen like as soon as you started walking into those spaces, showing up as like a kind of wellbeing advocate?
Yeah.
People would approach you differently.
Yeah. I found it really challenging the first year and a half in particular, because when I first started out in self-employment, I was doing coaching, particularly around life and mental health or mindset. And I was also teaching introduction to mindfulness classes in corporate environments and community environments. So because I was doing, people started to know me as the mindfulness person, but really I wanted to be known as the coaching person because that's where my heart has always been. But I think it was because of the way that I lived my life and the way that I practiced it and the way that I operated. People immediately put me in this box of being this person, and I actually really struggled with it for many years, where people were like, oh, you're the wellbeing expert or the wellbeing specialist, and I'd say, and in my mind I'd be thinking, are you kidding? I don't have this. And I think it was a perfectionist thing coming from law training and law environments where they really, really encourage type A characteristics and personalities and character, where it's must have that control, must have things perfect, must be, X, Y, and Z. And I think what I really struggled with was I would think I still have days where I'm really stressed, or I have days where I'm not getting enough sleep, or, I don't have my perfect morning routine. I don't have, right?
Yes. People think you're meant to do everything perfectly. Yeah.
And it was a lot of pressure. People really would look to me and ask for that advice, but I think it was rooted in perfectionism. And I still see a lot out there, especially in social media, where a lot of it is actually about perfectionism and control, whereas that's not the reality of life. Like, life throws us curveballs, huge curveballs. We all know this from the last few years in particular. And some days you need the donut, and that's okay.
Exactly. If the donut makes you happy, it's on the
100%.
vitamin D list. Do it. But I think, and I think sometimes it's easier, like, in a form of like self beat up as well, and you make, for whatever reason, you make yourself feel worse about whatever your situation is by looking at these people around you and being like, oh yeah, Jen, she's a wellbeing expert, she's got everything, like,
she's got it all together,
she's all, all well put together, and then you just continue to put yourself down because you're comparing.
It's awful. I think it's so awful. Like I see this on social media so much, and for to be completely honest, if I were not in the public space, you know, sharing content, doing workshops, I wouldn't have social media, because I know how detrimental it is to my own mental health. There are times where I go on it and it makes me really anxious. I don't like, especially in the dancing sphere, there's very much like a dancer's body, and I don't have a dancer's body, you know, a stereotypical one. And there was a few years ago where I first started training and performing in dance, and we got told that we were going to be wearing a tiny white leotard with a little skirt. We were going to be doing lots of turns, it'd be flying up, and the insecurity that I felt, it brought back all of my old body dysmorphia, all of like my old disordered eating.
I was like, how that kind of linked in with the dancing and insane costume.
How
did you get through that?
It was huge, to be honest. Like I think we did a lot of training for like 8 to 10 weeks leading up to our first performance, and I just felt awful, because there were people there that were, you know, 2 sizes skinnier than me, who had even worse insecurities than I did, and they were all comparing themselves to their bodies, they were all comparing themselves to each other. And after a period of time, I realised, and I had a good talk with one of my dance friends there, and we were just like, why are we spending so much energy worrying about this? Like, we do this because we love dance, we do this not because of the way that we look. And I'd say, though, that first performance, very nervous, yes. The second, third time, a lot easier, and I actually fell in love with the costume. And then a year and a half later, I actually wore that costume to a dance social and felt the sexiest I'd ever felt in my life, in my body. Yes. And I just wore it because I felt beautiful. Yes. But honestly, it did take time to work through it. It really did, of being like, you know, unfortunately, because of different sizes of different parts of my body in society, they are automatically sexualized because of the sizes of them, which I think is just awful.
And then you chuck a dance outfit on that. And I mean, like, dance was your happy place.
It still is my happy place. Yeah, thank goodness.
But then you've got those conversations around you, and it's hard because it's like everyone else around you is having those conversations, so you can't. It's hard to ignore. And
one thing that I've learned this year is, and I love this. This is from a new friend, Claire, in Queenstown. She shared this with me. She said, that's not a narrative that I subscribe to anymore. When someone started talking about their body insecurities, and they're like, oh, you know, I've just had this donut out of a bag of chips, I'm going to go to the gym because I can't keep it, you know, I have to like get rid of it. And she said to them, no, why? That's not a narrative that that's not a narrative that I subscribe to anymore.
I love that so much.
And I now feel that way as well when I hear and see so many women putting themselves down about their body, or about the way that they're working, or about where they are at in their life in terms of checking off different societally acceptable you know, notions of status or notions of success. Is firstly, where did that come from?
Who's telling you
this? Who is it serving to actually believe that and to play into that narrative and to take part in that? And then what would it actually mean to you to take on your own definition, to explore and investigate and interrogate and to inquire? Why is this? Like, what actually would be a healthier narrative for me? What's something that would actually serve me? You know, without getting too wokeism about it and be like, my truth is the truth. No, it's actually, is this healthy? Is this going to serve me? Is this going to serve others? What am I going to consider normal? Because we decide what is normal, right? So if we think about many decades ago where there was a lot more segregation, or it wasn't okay for homosexual or gay people to marry, and now it's like, no, that's completely okay, that's completely normal. It's, love is love.
Yeah.
And
Normal
I think it's
can
something
change.
normal can change, and I think that's a really beautiful lesson. It's something that I've been talking about with many audiences over the last 2 months of speaking at conferences in Queenstown, is that so many leaders and people in organizations, you can now define what is normal. Is talking about feelings normal? Is talking about mental health normal?
Yeah.
Is taking a mental health day or a wellbeing day normal? Is segregating people normal? Is open communication normal? Like, when you define that and realize that actually you have more power or it's really empowering to realize that you can define that.
Yes.
There's huge power in it.
Exactly. I mean, historically, we know society always takes a lot longer to catch up.
What?
I know. Who knew?
Shock.
But I guess it's so easy because we make our lives so busy that
Yes.
it's so easy to just get wrapped up and swept away with what society, what other people are telling you to do.
Yeah.
Even friends and family, well-intentioned, but what are they, what's been demonstrated to you? And then you just don't question it.
Yeah.
And you just kind of carry on and go with it. But then there's also sometimes going against that flow is hard work.
100%.
And, you have people around you kind of questioning maybe some decisions or what you're doing. So it's just like, actually, no. Being able to kind of stay grounded and stay true to whatever your new normal might be.
Yes.
If you're choosing to kind of go against the grain.
And both you and I know this so well, is, the last year you've left law, you've moved different places. Both of us have moved down to the South Island in the last year. We've both left city life. We've moved to smaller communities, and we're
doing some healing, doing some
done
resting.
some big healing and resting, absolutely.
Yes.
And that goes against the norm, right? I still remember when I left the path of law, and for the first year and a half, my whole family were saying, what are you doing? What are you doing? You've spent 5.5 years studying different degrees, working towards this, and now you're doing something completely different. So for that first year and a half, when I was in leadership development and people development, I said, it's just an experiment. I'm just giving this a year, seeing how this is going to go. In my head, I was like, I'm never going back to law. But I did also, because I'm a bit stubborn and I like to close off chapters, is I did still get admitted to the bar just in case I wanted to go back. Yeah. So I did that partially for them, so, they could get photos of their daughter with the wig on and gown and stuff. Yeah. And also, if I ever changed my mind, I could go back.
The options,
but the reality, I knew, I knew. The funny story is actually that those photos of me getting admitted to the bar with the wig and the gown on, whenever I show that on the first slide or two, when I go and speak to audiences, whether it is public speaking or it's a workshop, as soon as I show that, it's like they relax and they think, this woman, she knows what she's talking about. She's done the societally accepted routes. She has, she's done the law side. She clearly has that brain. She can think through things. She's cognitive. We can resonate with her, rather than, she's a wellbeing person or a people development or a coaching person and she's all woo-woo and there's nothing grounded. No, for real.
Fascinating. So it's like, if you didn't show that picture or if you didn't tell that part of your story, you'd get a different response.
Yes, 100%.
That's insane.
It's actually not
It's
insane
so
if you think about it. It's frustrating, but it also makes sense because
does.
if you think about it, when it comes with going into different environments with people with different generations, there are still different generational mindsets where if you achieve a certain, whether it's a career or a certain, you get married, for example, or you achieve a certain management or leadership position, there are still people that think, you're in this box that I can understand. Therefore, I know how to treat you. I know how to understand you. Whereas if you, for example, say, I'm self-employed or I'm creating a podcast or I'm into crypto or I teach breath work, and some people still think, what on earth is that? So it's being able to adapt and understand and have compassion to meet people with where they are at. And I realized that people actually, if they want to explore and to understand more about change or culture or transformation or mental health or wellbeing, things that are relatively actually quite new to the conversation, is that having things in place that they understand, it creates that safety, that psychological safety, that certainty that they can, it helps to relax the brain so that they can take in new bits of information. So for example,
start listening and feel comfortable with you.
Absolutely. So if I go in and I'm dressed nicely, you know, I speak pleasantly, I can communicate, I show a photo of me with
the
wig on, and I have slides, you know, that's ticking a number of different boxes. There's lots of familiar things in there. And then they can relax, and they're open to new insights, they're open to challenging conversations. Or if I go in and I play a card game with them, for example, the emotional culture deck or the Wellbeing deck, it's treating them with kindness, and it's meeting them where they are at, rather than throwing a whole lot of different scientific terms or more well-being related terms. It's
and expecting that they will change and
take
everything on board.
Yeah,
that's fascinating. Have you? I mean, you've been doing this for like over 5 years now.
Yeah.
Is the conversation improving?
Great question.
Are we getting better as a society?
Yeah, great
at
question.
Talking about it, are people more like open to these conversations in different generations?
So honestly, that's one of the things that gives me the most hope at this moment in time.
Yeah.
You know, there are many things that I'm worried about, like the impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic on a connection and on younger generations and their cognitive and social skills, etc. But when it comes with how the conversation has been changing, I mean, 7-8 years ago when I was in that first working environment, we were not talking about mental health.
No.
It was not a thing. We were not talking, even though I was in those environments, you know.
No one talked about it.
No.
Burnout was just this unspoken
Yes. It was this thing that was really bad if it happened. It was really shocking. It was there, something's gone really wrong. Or anxiety or depression or mania or bipolar. They were these scary terms. Whereas I think, honestly, the COVID-19 pandemic, as horrible as it's been for so many people, there's a benefit has been that we're now talking more openly about mental health and about the importance of culture and team dynamics and checking in with people. Exactly. Because for many people, the COVID-19 pandemic was the first time for so many people where they either saw it in themselves or they saw it in others or they experienced it like really close to themselves. So they might have thought, oh no, that impacts people, not me. But that came into play, and there was so much uncertainty and a huge amount of change that for many people, it was the first time they'd really experienced either a big period of anxiety or depression. So I'd say, as horrible as it's been and tough for many people, the fact that that conversation has changed and now it's a lot more open, it's a lot more inclusive, it's a lot more accepting, that's been a big change.
I'd never really stop to think about it in those terms.
That's true though.
Did you think even pre-lockdowns, pandemic, was there a change in the right direction, or do you think this has been a really big catalyst for opening the doors to those conversations?
So pre the lockdowns, I'd say it was starting.
Yeah.
So it was.
Because I guess there's still like media coverage and stuff like that. It's kind of that's obviously a really big player in the media that people are consuming. And if different generations, if you sit down and watch the news, One News, if they're not talking about mental health, it is probably not necessarily entering your sphere. And so having media talking about it and having those conversations within the house,
but also leaders as well. Truly, that. During the various different lockdowns, I would have so many conversations with managers or leaders or teams. And one of the things that kept coming up as a highlight was their leaders would constantly do check-ins, and they'd also be open about their own mental health.
Yes.
And I think that was a real first, to be honest, was that people were actually showing vulnerability and showing that they are also human and they were doing the best that they could. And that they would provide as much certainty as they could, because that's really important for people, is that certainty. And also they were doing the best that they could. And it was hard.
Yes.
Yeah. So it does give me hope. It really does. My hope is that within, if not the next 5 to 10, then within the next 20 to 30, is that my kind of work will not be needed, because it will just be part of workplace culture. It'll be part of people's vocabulary and their language and the way that they operate and the way that cultures are. And there's not so many, schmitty managers and leaders. I don't know what your policy is on swearing on the podcast. Which is
Go for it.
I tell you, the last year or two, because I never know who exactly is going to be consuming content, I've been quite careful about my language. So it's schmitty and fluff.
I love that.
You're welcome. What the actual fluff. The duck.
Have you watched New Girl?
Yes.
Okay, you say Schmitty, and I just think of
Schmidt.
And I was like, is that a reference to his character as a leader? Because he's fabulous.
He is. I still love the douchebag jar? The jar?
Yes.
Put it in the
yeah. Schmidt jar.
The Schmidt jar. Yeah. So for those that haven't seen New Girl, look up on YouTube New Girl, the douchebag jar. And there's a great clip where every time this character Schmidt does something not great or kind of douchey or misogynistic, he gets told to put money in the jar. And I think there's one day that he gets told to put 50 or 100 in the jar, and then there's a whole episode about why so much.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. I love it. I loved all of those characters.
Right.
So much. I still don't have a favourite.
Oh. Yeah, no, we won't go into that. I feel like that's a BuzzFeed quiz. We are millennials, aren't we? We're totally millennials, the fact that we know about BuzzFeed quizzes. Gen Z, look up what a BuzzFeed quiz is.
I love that. Do you think post lockdowns and pandemic, has there been more burnout or more conversations about burnout?
Yes.
Yeah. What does it look like? What have you come across?
Oh, it is a huge topic at the moment, because the reality is that in the majority of workplaces, environments, and groups of leaders that I've been talking with and working with over the last year, that the majority of them are burnt out, quite severely burnt out. And in Aotearoa, New Zealand, we are experiencing, and I think also worldwide, there's a lot of staff shortages, there's challenges, there's issues with retention, there's, we've now got tourism coming back in, or we have had that for a wee while, and there's just not enough service providers or not enough staff. And so that compassion is important. Be kind to your barista over Christmas, everyone. Be very kind. Yes. So, yeah, burnout's a huge thing at the moment. And I don't think I ever specifically addressed it last year, but last year, from the beginning of, I think it was mid-November until mid-January, I told the entire, social media world, all my clients, that I was going to be taking 2 months off and packing up my life from the last 7 years in Wellington, then moving down to the South Island, Queenstown. And part of the reason was that I was so close to burnout from over 4 years, especially 2 years of supporting thousands of people, their development, their culture, their well-being, their mental health. I'd been doing it for so long, and I was depleted. I'd also had a big breakup, or a big ego break / heartbreak. And I'd had a number of different minor / micro / bigger traumas that year as well. And I think from a year of build-ups of different breakups and heartbreaks and stuff, I was just done. It just all caught up, and I was like, no, I'm resilient, I'm fine, I'm good, I'm great, I've got dance, I do all the self-care. But the reality was, I was not okay. I really wasn't. I needed to take time. And the fact that I have been self-employed at that point in time by over 4 years, I'd built things up to a point that I could take time off. I could let the team run things in the background. I'd built up the team, and I needed that time. I did. And one of my friends has called the first part of this year my rebuilding stage, rebuilding Jen, because I needed to take some deep space and deep healing and do some deep exploration about what I'm doing and where I'm going next. And I felt lost, to be honest. I'd done so much support helping others, and then I also needed to do that for myself. And so now, as we're talking, I'm about to be leaving the South Island in the next few days.
Very sad. I'm not going to acknowledge that.
You and so many other friends are like, no, I'm in denial. You're not leaving. We love you. No, please. Which is beautiful. I'm so grateful for it. Actually, I was reflecting on this yesterday that one of the things that my mum used to say to me when I was younger, and it used to really piss me off, I'm not gonna lie, really did. You know how like parents say things at the point in time you're like, no, I don't want to agree with you. You're wrong. You're my parent. Love you, but no. So she used to say that whenever you experience sadness or a really big emotion, or like, it means that you've been lucky enough to have the experience, that something meant something a lot to you. And so the fact that I'm feeling really sad about leaving so many incredible people in Queenstown and the life that I've had down here, I can't feel anything apart from gratitude, sadness and gratitude for these experiences. And now I feel so ready for this next chapter. Like, I'm ready to have my own space, my own home. I want a dog in the next year. Doggo. Calling in that King Charles Cavalier Spaniel. She's going to be so cute and fluffy.
I can see it.
I like my heart and my ego are healed. Like, I'm ready for a new chapter, and I want a family in the next few years. And work-wise, maybe the more corporate healer side of me will come out, or the corporate hippie side. So watch this space.
So do you kind of see still doing coaching work, or do you think there'll be a bit of a shift in how you approach things?
Good question. I'd say I've had the privilege of doing this work now for over 5 years. I still love it. There's still a lot of it that I love. And also I'm looking forward to doing it in more sustainable ways. Like traveling around the country so much this last year has been incredible and also really, really tiring. Yes. Who would have thought it? Turns out that traveling around the country for different client workshops and delivering different services and conference speaking and going to different Latin dance festivals has been incredible. Huge privilege. And also really tiring and quite stressful at times.
And packing your life in your
Packing
car,
my life out.
your
Oh,
shelves,
girl.
your weighted blanket.
The car she is weighted down. She really is.
She's not a large car either.
Oh, she's so cute. She does so well. Good old little Honda Jazz. When someone looked at it the other day, they were like, that's not your car. I was like, yes. They were like, but it's more of a grandma car. I was like, that's rude. How very dear.
Yeah. She's done some miles.
Yeah, she has.
Bless her.
Yeah.
But also, I mean, like, not having a particular base, not having like a home as such.
It's been hard. Yeah.
A year?
Honestly, I think for anyone that has seen people on social media where they travel around a lot, they go to different places, they do stuff. Life. Yeah, the van life. I tell you, I think there's beauty in it, and also there is a real beauty in routine and stability and having a home, and that's what I'm ready for now. Like, it's been basically a whole year of not having a solid home base / base for longer than I think 2 or 3 months at a time. Really.
Yeah.
I think the longest I've been in one place this year has been 6, maybe maximum 8 weeks.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then trying to have like sort of semi-structure in there and routine.
What structure and routine?
Like waking up in different beds.
Yeah. Hey, don't say that. That makes me sound really what?
Different hotel rooms. That doesn't help.
We're just sticking a hole here. So, for the listeners, I have high standards around my dating life. I don't do that. Love men. Also, no. Oh yeah.
But
so
maybe once you have your house north, there'll be some space for someone else.
Yeah. Well, I've missed that, to be honest. I'd say I've missed having a really solid friend circle. I've missed having space and capacity for dating. I've missed having that home life and being able to set up a cute office like we're in at the moment. Maybe not with a schlammer, but
spare bedroom / office today.
Yeah.
Took over.
Yeah. Yes. So looking forward to all that. I think honestly that there's pros and cons to everything, and I'm ready for that next chapter.
Yeah. So you still feel like at the moment anyway we still need those like mental health conversations and continuing forward, but also like in the coaching world as well.
Oh, yes. Speaking of the coaching world, that was a conversation that you and I had the other day and thought might be useful for this, is that one of the things that is really I think firing me up for the first time in a long time. And
Firing in a good way, or like are you angry?
or
Is this angry Jen? I don't think I've seen I can't imagine angry Jen.
I think it's a combination of both. I think it is the former legal training / advocate in me, and I think I've always had that advocate in me. Is there
like internal fire?
Yes,
Yeah,
internal fire. Love
same.
that. Yeah. So there's a big internal fire that I'm feeling at the moment, and it feels awesome to feel it again, because I think I lost it a few years ago.
What is your star sign? Are you a Sagittarius?
No, I'm a Scorpio girl. I'm a Scorpio.
I think we might be
passionate.
the same, because our birthdays are within like a couple of weeks.
Yes. Yeah. So
okay.
Yeah.
Random tangent.
Love it. No, so
but just because I'm a Sagittarius, it's always like it's meant to be this fiery sign. And
no, Scorpio is more the fiery sign, like very passionate, have like a really deep internal world, very fiery can be, like the Scorpion tail / also is the sign of transformation and change. It's like the other sign that we've got for Scorpio is the Phoenix.
Yes.
Yeah, this is more of our spiritual chat.
Yes.
Hey, love it.
No, it was just because, previously talking about like this with other people, and they're like, oh, you don't seem like a Sagittarius because you're not super fiery. Nah. And then I think only like probably the last few years, I'm like, actually internally, I've got that internal fire. Yeah. It's definitely there. I choose my moments.
That's fair.
It's not always helpful.
Yeah, but it's useful when you see unfairness or inequality or injustice or inequity.
Yeah, and it's funny the lawyer background as well, like wanting to advocate for stuff. I can't turn it off.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I feel like I've been doing this for many years, but in different spaces, and now where the inner advocate or that inner fire is coming out is from my experiences being in coaching and personal development, spiritual development, then also mental health and ex-legal state advocate training, and seeing so much unethical practices happening in the online business world, the online coaching world, the spiritual development, people going outside of their scope or their remit, or bringing up trauma in clients and then not doing proper follow-up or care. There's a lot of really damaging practices happening. And one of the things that I'm seeing is that when we're typically on social media and we're scrolling and we're consuming this content, we're in a more susceptible state. We're almost like in a semi-meditative state where we're scrolling, we're not really conscious so much, right? Yeah. And so we're actually more influenceable when we are consuming that content. So one of the things that we're seeing is that like a lot of Generation Z are turning to TikTok as their search engine to learn things, and they're taking opinion or belief as fact. Yes. So there's real danger in that. And so what I'm seeing in coaching and online business is that there are a lot of really damaging claims and practices and unethical behaviors and business ways of operating that are actually hurting or re-traumatizing or traumatizing people. And so there's this inner advocate, inner fire coming out thinking, what can be done?
Oh, yeah. How do we fix this? Yeah. Because it's like, you're not just, like, you're there to coach someone, but there's this whole individual human with individual unique life experiences. Yeah. And you don't necessarily know all of those. Yeah. The client may not actually share all of that, but you don't know what's going to trigger this person. Yeah, or activate them. Yeah. Or like, if you're not the right person to help them, sending them in a different direction.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So for listeners, if, for example, a coach says that they can heal your trauma, that's a huge red flag, because coaches are not trained in healing trauma. Trauma is the field of counseling, of psychology, of psychiatry, of psychotherapy. It's not coaching. Coaching is being trained in how to facilitate a conversation by using specific types of questions to help the person come to their own insights, their own understanding, their own actions. That's what coaching is. Mentoring is providing advice. Coaching is literally the questions. It's being able to hold that space, facilitate that conversation. It's not counseling. It's not psychotherapy. It's not trauma healing. So really big advice there is, if you're looking for a coach online or someone to help, is look at their qualifications, look at their experience, look at their credentials. Don't immediately say, oh, it's a Black Friday sale, I must take advantage of this. Yes. Or this person is saying it's $9.99 or it's $111 or it's $1,111 and it's only this price for the next 24 hours. that's a scarcity tactic. It's
Yeah.
all we learn so much of this in sales techniques and sales training.
Yeah.
Be careful.
It's like the psychology behind
Yes.
sales, but it's also
Yes.
targeting potentially really vulnerable
Yes,
people when you're in
exactly.
that space. And when I did my first like personal development course end of last year, luckily like I had conversations with my sister about this, and she was really good at saying, like, not cautioning me, but I guess checking in to see how I was, because it wasn't necessarily like, it was coaching and it was personal development work, but kind of I guess checking in with myself to be like, is this what I need? Am I ready for this? Or
Yeah.
do I need more mental health support? Do I need a
Yeah.
counsellor? Do I need a psychologist? Like a wraparound package? Or because I think if I'd started my personal development work any earlier, I wouldn't have been ready, because I was still processing grief, and like that trauma was still sitting there, and I wasn't actually ready to work on myself. But I guess that's kind of recognizing stuff like that in yourself can be really hard.
Yeah.
Or looking like, oh, I want to work with someone, like someone can help me, but like in that scenario, thinking like, oh yeah, I'll work with a coach, when really maybe what you need is a psychologist.
Yeah.
If your trauma is still quite real and
Yes,
quite raw.
absolutely.
Yeah, and that was something that I had to be wary of, and acknowledge that while the coaching was great, it wasn't going to help my trauma.
Yeah. So for those that are listening, it's probably useful to do a quick little explanation that it's useful to understand the differences between a coach, a counsellor, a psychologist, and a psychotherapist. So I'm sure you can find a blog about this, and I think we're creating a blog at the moment to help people understand this, because it's actually really useful to know where to go. There's a great website called talkingworks.co.nz that gives you access in a database. That gives you an access in a database to see counsellors, psychologists, psychotherapists. So that's a really great starting point. Coach, facilitating, asking questions, helping you from a future focus, so not working on problems. It's very much about seeing your potential, helping you reach your goals. Counsellor, very much about the past, helping you, give you different coping strategies to work through what you're going through in the present moment, and maybe touching about on past stuff. Psychologist, very much about psychological strategies, helping you with your thinking, testing your thinking, and working a little bit on past stuff. Psychotherapist, all about the childhood trauma, all about what's the stuff that happened in your childhood that impact your present day behavior and your actions and the way that you're operating. And then psychiatrist is, they've gone through many years of medical school, and so they do the psychology side of things, so understanding the mind and the brain, and also knowing what medication to prescribe.
Thank you.
Pleasure. That was a really quick deep dive.
That was great. Yeah.
Oh, pleasure. I feel like I need that as a soundbite.
Yeah, I'm sure we can figure that out.
Thanks.
But yeah, I think it's, you might be in a space where you're like, oh, I'm feeling a bit lost or whatever. And it's just, I guess, knowing the right people to go to, because there's so many people out there at the moment on social media.
Yes.
And spiritual spaces as well, selling themselves as coaches.
Yeah.
And I guess maybe you can call them a coach. I'm not sure about the rules around when you can call yourself a coach and when you can't. But just because they have lots of pretty social media, doesn't necessarily mean that's going to be the right person for you.
And they might have copied and pasted content from Tony Robbins or Abraham Hicks, or be talking about manifestation and codes and abundance and all that kind of stuff. The reality is, you can go as deep as you want into the spiritual development space. I think spirituality is beautiful. It's part of the beautiful Te Whare type of farm model from Te Ao Māori and Indigenous wisdom. And I think spirituality 100% has a place. Both you and I are highly spiritual people. Yeah. I'd say when it comes with people saying, I've had this download or these codes come to me,
maybe stay clear.
Maybe just go in with your own wisdom and use your own intuition, your own wisdom, and sense check. Does this feel right? Does this seem right? Does this genuinely look like it'll add value or help? Versus, am I actually needing connection? What's my genuine need here?
Go dive deeper. What is it I'm looking for? Yeah.
am I needing to feel a genuine connection with friends or loved ones? Is this person love bombing or like showering me with all this love and affection? They're like, hey babes, love you.
Yeah.
Versus that's a one-way relationship, right? Is it genuine? Can you get that somewhere else?
Yeah. And I guess the difficulty with that is people that are struggling, if you're in a vulnerable headspace, life is feeling overwhelming, it might be really hard to actually go deep and check in with yourself and follow that intuition. And I guess that's where the ethics really kind of kick in and it becomes dangerous.
Yes, absolutely.
And predatory. Perhaps.
Yes.
And saying, and the money sort of mindset as well. Like, maybe you don't actually have a lot of money and this person's encouraging you to spend it because you'll earn it back in tenfold or whatever when you become a coach yourself. Like all of those layers that are very much out there.
Are we going to go into the pyramid scheme nature of coaching and coaches coaching coaches and how there's so much narrative and rhetoric out there about earn 6 figures and multiple 6 figures and 7 figures, and it seems to be this climbing pyramid, and that if you're not earning a certain amount of money, that you're not really honoring yourself, or that you're not charging your worth, or that you're not getting the results. But the reality is, are you getting results for your clients versus are you just charging them tons and tons of money? And also, what is the ethical practice in there? Like, psychologists charge anywhere from $120 to $200+ an hour. Coaches charging thousands and thousands. You know, that's a whole separate economy, and good on you. Yes. And also, is it ethical to charge people that much money when, if you are doing some really deep work with them and you're accidentally or intentionally bringing up trauma, and then you're not providing the aftercare, or you're not helping the people navigate that trauma, that's unethical.
Yes.
And that's something that I think needs to change.
Yeah. Is there how do you see that changing?
Great question. So
if there's an answer.
Yeah. So there are 2 international coaching regulatory bodies.
Right.
Even though coaching is a largely unregulated space, that's a real difficulty with the industry. Same thing with healing and spirituality and wellbeing, is that they are largely unregulated spaces. My dream in there is that it actually gets a lot more regulated, because I know from experience that when it comes with our own wellbeing, when it comes to trusting people, is that you need and you deserve the best quality care, because you're not just investing your time, you're investing your hard-earned resources, your energy, your money, and that needs to be respected. Like, sure, there might be people with no sense of empathy or compassion that will just take people's money. I am not, and I never want to be one of those people. It's unethical. It's not right. And so my dream and my vision is that it becomes a much more regulated industry, because I still love coaching. I still love personal development. I think there is huge benefit to it. It helps so many people, and you know, we all need people to support us with achieving our goals and holding us to a higher vision of ourselves, right? We all need cheerleaders. And you know, having that support and knowing that that person has achieved something and I can learn something from them. They know that the mindset challenges, they know the things that might come up, they know those journeys. That's more mentoring, of course. And then I really do think, like, more advocacy in the industry. Maybe I know that there's a court case going through at the moment. I don't know if it's come out with a verdict in the States, when an influencer made all these claims that she was going to create these personalized like meal plans and workout plans, and then just gave everyone the exact same one, and people actually took her to court. So it'll be interesting to see what comes out of that now influencers and people that say stuff online are actually being held to account. I see that for the coaching industry as well. And I'm going to say, like, I've not been perfect in the past. I really haven't. It's been a learning journey for sure. And my hope is that I will also hold myself to higher standards of ethics and professionalism, because when it comes to people's time, their energy, their resources, their well-being, that needs to be respected. I love it. really passionate about this. My goodness.
The inner fire.
It's the inner advocate, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, coming from, both of us coming from legal professions where we had a strong code of ethics, there was literally a whole paper on it, which was awful. But
Yeah, not good.
what do we remember ethics? So much. But knowing that we had that code of ethics and hearing all the cases of people being struck off or disbarred for going against the code of ethics, and then going into different industries where there is not a similar or same standard, when we are still dealing with people and their relationships and their present reality, their past reality, their goals for the future. And when it comes with people, is that their well-being, their mental health, that never just impacts them. It impacts every person around them. And so I know that when I experienced a really bad period in that first work environment of anxiety and depression, it hurt my whole family. You know, they struggled, like knowing that their daughter, who I think I was the golden child at that point in time, where, you know, I'd gone through law school, my brother had gone and become a builder and dropped out for a bit and all that kind of stuff, where they had so many hopes put on me, which was a lot of pressure, probably a different conversation. But the fact that I struggled so much, it really shook them. And so I know that when it comes with one person, that ripple that comes out from them, if we care for them, that's much more positive, and we need that in this world.
Yeah, it's just taking that perspective and seeing that ripple effect, because I was the same. I just, because my energy levels were so dissipated, I couldn't give energy to anyone else. I barely had enough for myself. Yeah. And that ended up like kind of closing off, not reaching out to friends. Like even the idea of picking up the phone to call a friend felt overwhelming, because I was just so so exhausted.
Yeah, I get you.
And it probably wasn't until I was sort of out the other side that I realised how much it had affected everyone else. And you're like, there are actually people in my life that care. And want me to show up for them. So it's, and then as you kind of start working on yourself and the ripple effects become more positive, and realising, I'm just one individual, but there's circles around me that are impacted by this, either for better or worse. But the fact that working with as a coach, that's something you should be aware of.
Yes, absolutely.
And helping this person to create positive ripples in their lives, because then your work with that one person isn't just touching them. It's the effects, the flow on effects. Their
friends, their family, the people that they interact with, their colleagues, their clients, whatever it is. Like early in the year, I took off a few months, and I just said, I'm not taking on any clients because I'm not in a good space. I'm not going to do that, because I know how much my state impacts everyone else. And so I know that coaching is such a privileged work to do, where I have that insight into people's lives and their goals and their visions for themselves and their future and their family, and that's hugely privileged. And so making sure I'm okay, that's my top priority. My number one word, my theme for this year was spaciousness, and I think it's the first year where I've actually really kept to it, and I've had so much spaciousness this year, and it's just been a huge privilege. And needed, important.
And I enjoy having conversations with people like you and other friends, talking about resting, talking about healing. And realising that that's a priority, because the world around us has encouraged us to just stay busy.
What? It's almost like we're in like a patriarchal, like capitalistic society.
Just stay in your masculine energy the whole time.
And it's almost like capitalism encourages burnout and consumerism and everything. And then rest is actually anti-capitalistic. That's the word. Anti-capitalist. Rest is. And rest can actually be work. It's for I think for both of us, where we come from high functioning spaces, and we're both high functioning and probably type A or working
Close
through that.
to,
I think like I've more relaxed a lot of that, but still have type A tendencies. Is rest can be really tricky. Rest can be really tough, because it can be all these stories coming out in our minds of, is this lazy? And is my worth going to change if I'm not producing as much? Is people's opinion of me going to change because I'm not showing up as much or I'm not being as consistent online.
Yeah.
When actually, does this really matter?
I feel like you've just kind of explained the past like year of my life.
You're
It's just
welcome.
the mind games and then realising no one else is actually saying this to me.
No.
No one's called me lazy.
Oh,
It's actually just in my own head.
social media
Which is great.
is a whole cluster in itself. So earlier this year, I think it was about 4 or 5 days where I paced out from Queenstown and I went to like Tekapo and I did a solo retreat. I turned off my phone for 4 or 5 days, and I realised that because of the work that both you and I do, where we're online quite a bit or we're engaging with people a lot, is that I don't think my brain had properly switched off in at least a few years. Because the way that my brain had been trained because of social media and creating content was that I would see things and think, oh, this is a great thing to add. Oh, this will add value to people. Oh, this insight that I'm having, I need to share it because it might help people. Yeah. And so I've completely changed the way that my brain thinks on that. Yeah. And then also thinking around, actually, I don't need to post this now. I'm going to do this later. Yeah. Because I want to be present with my loved ones, or I just want to dance. Let me dance.
Yeah. Oh my god. Oh. Yeah. Well, oh my god. There's still so much we could talk about. So there might be parts 2, 3, 4.
I feel like you're the 4th podcast host to say that.
There's just so many different topics. Yeah. But yeah, we'll leave it there on one of the 4 or 5 Ds. Was it?
Yes.
Dance?
So
how many Ds?
5 days. We won't go into like fifth dimensional stuff, but you know. Yeah. So vitamin D, dogs, dance, donuts, deep and meaningful conversations, and vitamin D sunshine. We could go a little bit filthier and edit this one, but tea. Respectable females, eh?
I mean, yes, online, but
yeah.
Thank you so much for joining me.
Oh, my pleasure,
it's been
sweetheart.
Amazing having these conversations with you,
Likewise.
sharing this with everyone else. Thank you.
Yeah, hope it adds value to people, and if they want to follow up or ask questions or know more, they're welcome to find out more at Intentional Generations on Instagram or Facebook or LinkedIn. More than happy to connect with people, and we've got tons and tons of free resources on our website, so you're more than welcome to have access to the resource library.
In the notes, you can go and find Jen.
Yes. All right, have fun, team. Bye. Kia ora.